Welcome back, everybody. We're getting ready to move on this Thursday day of the SPL, and we're getting into the NA side of things here in set number 2. We've got Trifecta, formerly known as In Memory of Gabe, up against Team AI. I'm Aggro, joined by Anatoly. And Toly, Team AI, they still have these new pieces they're trying to get put together, but they really need to get these points now if they want to make sure they can make DreamHack.
Considering we're in week number 4 here, Ryan, this is the time. This is now do or die for both of these teams, honestly. AI with Chapo now and Xenotronics on their team, and then the new organization here, Trifecta, they need to find their identity as well here and secure some key clutch victories.
Yeah, I mean, during the spring split, in memory of Gabe, they were there, they were a strong team, but they were still trying to find their way to the top tier, and then they kind of put themselves down a little bit, not necessarily just because of switching out Walrus for Kiki in terms of player skill, but anytime you've got a new player, especially the type of player that Kiki is, it takes a little bit of time to get acclimated to that kind of player on your team.
Absolutely. Kiki and Walrus are two completely different soul laners between what gods they like to play on the battlefield, between what they like to build on those gods specifically that they do share. So it's a different style, but Kiki's been filling that role quite cleanly thus far, and so far so good for Trifecta. They're coming really close to that top 3 in North America.
Yeah, all these teams are definitely, North America very close, especially in that middle of the pack. You know, these teams are like, yeah, they're really good, but they struggled in this set or this set. Now with Noble starting to rise up too, that means that it's even tighter in there for all of North America. And remember, only top 3 going to DreamHack.
That's true. This is why this is such a key set here for Trifecta. AI, they don't have that many points compared to Trifecta right now, but it's still important for them to try to grind it out here because they could still potentially hit that tied for 3rd place if they win out.
That's true. We're getting ready for picks and bans here. Game number 1, ready to come at you between Trifecta and Team AI. It's going to be Team AI in that first position. They've been, as we mentioned, with 2 new players. Adding 1 new player, you expect a team to kind of stay the same. Adding 2 new players, that can change your entire play style.
Now, normally, whenever you switch a Hunter for Zap for Xenotronics, that's not the biggest thing in the world. You could still just AFK farm and chill, but whenever you switch a jungler here to go from DJ Pernicus to El Chapo, that's a huge stylistic change as well for a whole roster.
Absolutely, and not only that, but like you mentioned, ADCs usually don't do a lot of shot calling, but Zap's been around so long that you assume that he was doing a little bit of that. You're changing out your jungler, who's usually a big part of that shot calling component. So you've got a whole new team dynamic there for Team AI that they've got to work with. They immediately ban away the Soul from Trifecta, while Trifecta, they ban away Osiris. Nemesis going to be the 2nd ban for AI.
Not really surprising to see Osiris off the table, but really surprising to see Soul very early on here against Trifecta. A god that could flex between that mid and that Hunter position for Trifecta. You're looking at really Haro in there in that mid lane that could potentially look to play that god.
Yeah, and Snoopy's played it a lot as well in the Hunter role. One of the only Hunters that still picks up the Soul. Most mid laners have kind of locked her down for themselves. Now AI have their first pick available. Susano was the 2nd ban by Trifecta. That leaves open the Circuit. Chapo gonna lock it in.
Chapo likes to play very aggressive here, and without Susano, he has a few options, but Circuit is a great one, especially if he wants to pair up with Divios in that early laning phase and trying to find some really early kills on that solo lane, maybe onto Kiki. But this Morrigan pick already from Trifecta leads me to believe that's going to Kiki already.
Yeah, I agree with you. Kiki, like you mentioned, it just has this eclectic god pool. You never know exactly what he's going to pull out. And he loves the Morrigan, and why wouldn't he? He's played almost every role at a competitive level. And that's exactly what the Morrigan wants you to do, is be able to use any god in your arsenal. Geb being hovered and locked in now for Ionic in that support role, and we saw just how potent this double Geb could be last time around for Rival.
Yeah, we saw it the last set. That was pretty nasty, actually, coming out of Deathwalker. But either way here, I doubt that's going to be the idea here coming out of Kiki. I doubt he's going to be playing that Geb, but either way, still a good idea sometimes if you need those defensive options for the Morrigan to switch into this defensive utility style support. There was a set earlier on last week where we saw a lot of Morrigan shifts into Terra for a lot of these engages, which really worked out to provide that extra cooldown reduction in that ultimate.
Well, now Kiki or whoever playing is the Morrigan on the side of Trifecta is going to have that option once more. Terra, the pick here for Team AI. Could be for Aurora or Divios, but as you mentioned, with the Circuit, wouldn't be surprised to see Divios go for a more aggressive option. Xenotronics going to lock in the Kurnos.
Divios has played a lot of Warriors and Guardians, but honestly, he has more success playing the Warriors, so I really want to see him stick to that style. He really prefers to go for the Hercules. He'll opt for the tier every now and then if he can get it Odin, not this season, but I know that's one of his sleeper picks, and I wouldn't be surprised if eventually Team AI starts bringing that one out.
Well, Trifecta gonna lock in Naja there for Cynosure in the jungle. I can tell you from experience, Cynosure very experienced on this Naja. Saw it a lot whenever he was on the console. Not so much since coming back over to PC, but you know he's got the hours in on that character, and Trifecta immediately assume that Terra is going to be going to Aurora in that support role and banning away that Bellona.
I mean, you're just covering your options, obviously. You don't want to be dealing with a Bellona in general if you can avoid it. Still, despite the Dust Toll nerf, Bellona does a lot of damage. You don't really want to deal with it. Can still clear the wave relatively safely. And despite not having the same amount of sustain on the Dust Toll with the AoE cleave from the hammer, you always still have the Scourge.
That's true. And you know, even with the Bellona banned away, like you mentioned, Divio seems to prefer the Sun Wukongs and the Hercules anyways. I think that's why we see Team AI not necessarily going for that selection early on. And Trifecta, after banning away Osiris, we think locked in their solo with that Morrigan, but we'll have to wait and see. Bans from AI are Rom and Nike, so they don't think that that Morrigan is necessarily in the solo lane. Could be in the mid lane for Whirlwind. And an Odin pick here for Trifecta. Why Odin into this roster?
Well, so far there's a Terra and a Kurnos. Two of these gods can't get out of that cage. Sarkett, if she uses her ambush to get into the action, then she's not going to be able to get out. So you have to make sure you save that cooldown now, defensively instead of engaging. And Hercules for Divios, like we mentioned, a great pick here because we saw a lot of action here from him. He's always looking for those clutch pulls and pushes every single time.
That Syllaban makes a lot more sense as once you see Trifecta lock in the Odin. That's the obvious way to get out of Odin cage, though. Nuwa ult will get the job done, like that pick for the best, but I think a reason we saw Trifecta pick Odin there was to dissuade Divios from going Hercules. Clearly not that worried about it because he locked it in anyways.
I mean, we saw what happened between, what was it, Omega versus Cyclone Spin way back in Season 2 when he just pushed the Odin into that Tier 2 tower, finding a very early kill. But what's more surprising than the Hercules into the Odin is this last pick, Apollo, a god that we really haven't seen at all in Season 4.
No, not really. I mean, the very beginning, everyone was saying, oh no, Apollo's crazy, he's so good, and we really haven't seen him. Getting ready to go into game here between Team AI and Trifecta. It is going to be Whirlwind on that Morrigan. We talked a lot about Kiki playing it, but Whirlwind, one of the original multi-role prodigies. You know, he can do it all in that mid lane. Came in as a sub for C9 into the Pro League some time ago, so you know that Whirlwind, kind of like Kiki, has the option to go for a lot of different styles of gods with that Morrigan. And as you mentioned, you'd think that this matchup is in Kiki's favor in that solo lane for the Odin versus Hercules, but we've seen it go the other way.
Well, honestly, you can also stop the bird bomb detonation damage with any form of CC realistically. If you time the right frame correctly, you're able to disrupt the complete clear out of the Odin. And not only that, you can semi-clear the wave at the same time if you position it correctly.
Snoopy's hanging around the mid lane here, but
a lot of damage.
Just going to head back. Yeah, Cynosure takes quite a bit rooted in place from the best, but El Chapo couldn't quite step up there. On the left-hand side, look at where Kiki is right now. He's on the enemy purple buff, trying to steal that away. Has a teleport to get back to that right-hand side. Is only going to clear out the minis there. Did he get the minis from the red as well? Did he get both sides?
I didn't see if he got the red minis, but he definitely got the purple minis, assuming that AI didn't start off their back harpies on the left, and since those are still up, I'm assuming that AI just went straight for the red here. They're not level 2 quite yet, whereas Snoopy and Ionic, they got both of their red and purple, so this was a great self-sacrifice from Kiki to ensure that his dueling would have that slight edge in this first wave.
Yeah, Kiki must have gotten those minis because even after clearing the red and purple, the duo lane for Team AI still was only level 1. Xeno and Aurora not going to be too outpushed. I mean, Terra and Kurnos still have pretty solid push, but may not get in there in time to contest these oracles on the left-hand side. Whereas on the right, El Chapo and the best splitting up, trying to min-max that farm.
Very risky play, though, from Kiki, because going into a laning phase against a Hercules that obviously you're going to be potentially poked out, maybe pushed under your tower, and if without that teleport, you could get poked out to the point where you're going to miss away from having to back.
Uh-oh, Aurora and Xeno in a bit of trouble here. Sprint was popped by the side of Team AI just to get them out of danger, but still quite a bit of poke onto the new Hunter for Aurora in this duo lane. And something that we haven't really discussed, Aurora is one of those players that is an excellent player. You see him make incredible plays all the time, but to me, he seems like one of those guys that takes a little bit to get used to his play style. You know, it's not one of those guys that you can just put on any team and see immediate success, and wouldn't be surprised to see AI have some growing pains a little bit on that dual lane side until Xeno and Aurora really start to click.
Aurora has like a one-size-fit-all glove kind of deal, really trying to fit the right style. He has his own specific click, and once he gets comfortable with a specific player, then you can definitely see it. But up until that point, sometimes he'll not get nervous necessarily, but just feel a little bit uneasy at times. But with Xenotronics thus far, it's been looking relatively calm. They're not overstretching their boundaries. They're just keeping everything within limits.
Aurora is one of those guys, I mean, you could say this about literally every player, and I preach it quite a bit, where you don't want to hesitate whenever it comes to what plays you want to make. You want to be confident and not think twice. As Ionic not thinking twice about blinking in onto Xeno. It's going to beads away the slow coming out of Ionic's rollout. The dash was down from Xenotronics. That's why you see Trifecta play aggressive in that dual lane.
Really surprising to see Xenotronics to use that dash so aggressively. Great capitalization, though, from Ionic. The fact that he was at level 5 doesn't even matter for that play, considering he got the purification beads out of Xenotronics. So next time, he could literally just roll around underneath that purple buff area and look for a Cataclysm knockup play. And the burst damage between the Geb and the Apollo should net a first blood.
And the blink will be up soon enough. Whirlwind, that's not him walking into the tower. That's him walking back outside the middle lane there. Is El Chapo and Best both level 5. But Sinosure, he's already sitting at level 6 and is getting more farm now with these fire elementals.
And the reason why Whirlwind does that is not only to create a little bit of a confusion, but also when you're in that stealth mode, you gain a little bit of extra mobility, and you're looking to make the plays.
Whirlwind transforms into Serket and immediately goes for Divios, putting on that anti-heal. Whirlwind gonna jump away, but Chapo following him up. Divios gonna fall for the first blood, but Chapo answers back onto Whirlwind to even it up at 1. Kiki still putting some damage onto Chapo, but the rest of Trifecta has turned their attention to the enemy speed buff that will go down, and Trifecta's actually there.
Sinosure finding one in the sky, landing back down. Chapo being able to ambush himself away, but the blue stone from Kiki nets the second kill for Trifecta.
Divios trying to teleport in, but the ward shut down in time. Beautiful play there out of Sinosure. Catching El Chapo, just not ready for that raw ultimate.
The problem with that little engagement here, like, I like the idea that Whirlwind had by going into the circuit, but that execution was a little lackluster. He didn't really find the zigzag connecting onto Divios. He only hit that one tick of madness there, and as a result, the positioning, that's the one difference between switching roles. We always talk about one player switching roles between splits. What if you literally have to switch a role in the middle of a game to go from a mid-mage to an assassin that you might not be used to playing?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when do you think the last time Whirlwind played Serket was? You know, it's difficult to answer one of those questions, but either way, I mean, he does end up getting the kill on the Divios there, helping his team get the kill on the Divios, and we mentioned the Odin Cage shutting down the Hercules healing, but utilizing that Serket pick to shut it down as well, very heads up from Trifecta. I think that's why we saw them be so willing to give up that Serket, a god that many do not want to face off against, usually banned, but Trifecta clearly had a plan, just going to use it for themselves. One that we saw Obey use very well at the Masters LAN.
Definitely did their homework here for this specific set. Trifecta already off to a pretty great start here, 2-1 on the scorecard, heading into the 6-minute mark with a very comfortable 1,000 gold lead thus far. No objectives really to be taken except for that speed buff that was stripped away, so I'm expecting more of these offensive warding coming out of Trifecta to really triangulate their positioning around this side of the map and shut down Chapo, because there's already a 2-level lead here for Sinosure.
And Sino's trying to go for the pure farm method. We saw Captain Twig do it with these Traveler shoes, Talaria boots, for not only him, but for Whirlwind as well, is the best in the rest of Team AI. A little worried that Trifecta was on that Gold Fury there, I think. That's why we see that ultimate.
No vision at all for anyone on the side of AI, so having to use that new ultimate, like you mentioned, just for the vision. They can't really get these neutral camp farms, whether it's the mid-harpies, the oracles, the elementals, and this is where the lead is starting to slowly build up for Trifecta.
And now that that new ultimate is down, the best is just a sitting duck for that cage from Kiki or a cage from Whirlwind as well. One of the reasons we see Odin be picked, but can be picked around kind of, is that you don't have to worry about him all the time. He's going to be in one lane if he's in the solo, so you're not worried about his rotations till the mid to late game, but Heroin can just transform into the Odin, and then you have to worry about it all the time.
There's just no issue at all for Trifecta. It seems that they covered a lot of their options. Chapo, though, trying to find a kill onto Snoopy, using that ultimate. Wild Hunt not on the mark, but a nice gap closer here by Chapo, and Xeno trying to find the kill. The very crucial Terra ultimate to be able to catch up to the Apollo.
Took 3 ultimates to find him, but Snoopy does fall, uses purification beads in the process, just not in the right spot there on the left-hand side. But with Team AI all committed to that left side and killing Snoopy, Trifecta going to be able to strip away another speed buff. But this is a good plan, I think, by AI, knowing that that right side is going to be under siege, specifically their buffs there. Let's give it up and try and find some kills on the left.
Great sash recognition here from Sinosure. The vision was right on top of Chapo, so he immediately sashed during the madness, and during that opportunity, you get the crowd control immunity, so you're not going to eat that taunt poison from the Circuit. All this warding from Trifecta is slowly paying off. As long as this Snoopy can avoid any sort of gank before level 12 when he gets the Aegis coming out of Chapo, then he'll be in a very comfortable position to allow his team to take their lead and start transitioning over to this Gold Fury.
There are a lot of wards on the map right now, not only from Trifecta, but from Team AI as well. Oracle started up by Trifecta, but not going to be going for the Gold Fury quite yet, despite Xenotronics being the only one who's pretty close. Xeno is a level down to Snoopy right now, and quite a bit in terms of power with that tower shield working into what's likely to be a shifters for Snoopy, where Xeno's still sitting only on the Ninja Tabi, but should be having a lot of gold in hand on this next back.
I'm very surprised to see a god such as Apollo pick up this shifter shield. Normally you look for gods that have a lot of scaling in their abilities, whether it's their ultimate as well, and normally you don't want to use the Apollo ultimate offensively all the time. You're using it for just rotation purposes or split push capabilities, but either way, shifter shield will still provide you a lot of damage on these in-hands, so Snoopy really using this opportunity to get that power spike.
The best, again, using the fire shards exclusively for vision, and it's not going to be doing a lot of damage at this stage anyways, so not a horrible use by any means there for the best, one of the more seasoned Nuwa players there is. Going back to the shifter shield option for Snoopy as he's under pressure once again. Good taunt by Chapo. Here comes that ultimate as well, but it throws it out of Xenotronics' ult, and Snoopy's going to be able to get away because of it.
The problem was that Chapo couldn't get in range of the zigzag opportunity to find the real damage that he needs at this point in the game. Also, Circuit sitting at level 9. I'm not sure if he has the level 2 ultimate here or not. Sometimes you won't save a skill point at level 8 depending on what you want to max out. But normally at level 8, if you want to max out your primary ability and your ultimate, you want to save that ability at level 8 to ensure it.
Yeah, tough stuff there for the newcomers to Team AI in that situation, because Snoopy had no purification beads. He was toast.
That should have been free, absolutely. And like you were talking about the shifter shield, now that I think about it a little bit more, Apollo doesn't really need attack speed with his passive. The way Audacity works is after a couple of hits anyway, you're going to be able to get the next 6 hits very quickly and in succession. So this is the whole idea by going for a lot of physical power and penetration as opposed to attack speed for Apollo.
Plus, I mean, he's going to be diving in there with the ultimate, utilizing that extra damage for Shifter Shield, and then he's in the thick of things, gets a bunch of extra protections whenever he falls below 50% HP. You add a Serenade on top of that, and that's a ton of protection, specifically against Xenotronics, who's forced to use his purification beads and his ultimate. Snoopy not only getting those important cooldowns out of the Hunter, but going to contest this red as well.
Great play. He does have the Bumba's Mask, trying to really set up an opportunity. This is a pure bait out of Snoopy. He baits out 3 ultimates by himself, even juking out the stun coming out of a roar. AI, they just cannot find this Apollo for the 3rd time.
Very close there for Snoopy, but did once again escape. Shifter Shield also great against Nuwa, something that we haven't brought up yet, but you get protections not only physical but magical as well, and a lot of Nuwas want to save that ultimate until someone's low, but difficult to gauge exactly how much damage you're going to be doing, especially to a carry that you're not used to having that much protection.
Absolutely. As a squishy mage glass cannon, you're looking for the squishy hyper carries in the backline that got poked out, especially when you have Circuit diving the backline with those poisons, and up until the Aegises, that's when you're really trying to get off that confirmed damage, and because of that small little power spike of protections, it makes it so difficult to really eyeball the difference.
Whirlwind and the rest of Trifecta snag those left side mid harpies and rotate back towards the middle. Divios uses his own ultimate just to confirm his blue buff. Kiki and Divios, not a whole lot of fireworks on this right-hand side, and You really never know what you're going to get out of two solo bladers like these, because you can have lanes like this where they're both just happy to farm up and wait for the mid game, and other times you'll see both these guys play hyper aggressive and really ask for a lot of ganks out of their jungler because they want to get ahead.
Honestly, normally you only see that kind of style when one of them really wants to prove a point in that laning matchup or against their team. But honestly, Kiki and Divios has been around the block for so long, they don't care about proving anything to the other. They are very comfortable where they're at. They know where their strengths and weaknesses lie, and this is going to come evident during these mid-game team fights.
Absolutely, and both these players can make big mid-game team fight impacts. Obviously, Kiki going to be looking mostly for the cage, but still at this stage where a lot of players are just now hitting double digits in levels. Chapo just level 10, Best level 11. That Bird Bomb going to be doing plenty in terms of damage, as well as, that's even before we mentioned the utilization of the cage.
Especially by having a lot of cooldown reduction here for Kiki. He has not only the Breastplate of Valor complete, but that Bracer of Undoing, which is going to give him slightly more cooldown reductions. And look at the build coming out of Divios. He actually skipped out a complete start item. I thought he was going to leave it at Silver Breastplate for quite a while, kind of the Deathwalker style, but instead electing it to finish it immediately after Boots.
Best uses his ultimate again for partially vision, also for CC immunity, I think. There, Whirlwind transforms into a Hercules right as Divios finds him with the ultimate, and then Whirlwind's gonna delete the Best with that damage coming out of Snoopy as well. Snoopy trying to run away, does dash away in time. Susano sure had that last breath on top of him, but Kiki is here.
Kiki finding two inside the cage. There is no Phantom. Divios is gonna get stunned outside of the cage. He throws a boulder back at Whirlwind, finding the driving strike on Sinosure. Nowhere to go. At least it's a 1-for-1 for AI.
Beautiful play out of Divios there, evening it up 3-3. Whirlwind, that's a clone, not going to be the real one, and Divios can't quite find the pull onto Kiki. So 1-for-1, as you mentioned. Great utilization of that damage coming out of Snoopy's ultimate. The Best just got erased there in the mid lane.
Just couldn't really do anything there without having this Aegis here. He didn't even use his purification beats because he didn't need to. There was just too much burst coming at him between the boulder, the Apollo ultimate that was used. There was just no hope for the squishy Nuwa to survive.
Chapo on this right-hand side. Divios gonna miss the driving strike, and now Chapo, a little bit of trouble here from Kiki, trying to turn it around on top of him now. Last breath just to get him out of danger, I think, in that scenario. Still sitting at only level 11, 3 levels down from Trifecta's solo.
And what Chapo did there was pretty smart there. The fact that Kiki still had his Bird Bomb shield activated, he didn't want to take the detonate damage, so he decided to trade out with the Odin in the in-hand to diminish the shield, to diminish the burst damage that it would deal back to him, and then saving the last breath ultimate for after the shield expired. Unfortunately, Divios couldn't really follow with the much damage that he wanted to, so they couldn't really find the kill.
Snoopy, he's gone for this Odysseus bow right after Shifter Shield, a la Ataraxia. Same sort of build we saw from the Obey Hunter in the first set of the day. Xenotronics looks to be going a little bit more standard. Light Blade could be either a chin size or an executioner in this scenario.
But on the flip side, charged bow coming out of Snoopy already, getting a huge attack speed boost, finishing it now to the Odysseus bow. Normally, we just talked about actually Apollo not needing attack speed for his passive, but what if you can get to that passive even quicker, right? So this is the whole idea behind this build coming out of Snoopy. He wants to get that Audacity as frequently as possible. And after this Odysseus bow, I'm not really expecting any more attack speed. No Icavile, no Executioner. It should be pure penetration or crit from here on out.
Yeah, I mean, Executioner does fill that penetration role. Wouldn't be too surprised to see one of those in Snoopy's build, but I think you're right. I mean, he's just looking for pure power after this. Odysseus bow really scales best with a big power numbers because you can spread that percentage of damage that you're doing across an entire team fight. Shifter certainly fits that mold with that 70 power, at least when you're above 50% HP. So the rest of the build can kind of just follow that trail, maybe something like a Crusher, Titan's Bane, things along that line.
Ooh, look what Snoopy's doing. He's actually hiding the Gold Fury inside the pit, and by having this vision right inside the Gold Fury, it makes it very difficult to AI to even spot it out from a distance. They would have to actually commit inside the pit to see this happening at Trifecta, to just walk away cleanly.
Beautiful play there out of Trifecta. I love it. I mean, as if you couldn't tell that this is a team full of veterans, there's your proof right there. I mean, these guys have been playing for so long that they understand those little things. I mean, if you don't see the Gold Fury getting hit, they're not on it, right?
That's true.
That's what every team says. Oh, I don't see the particles, so they're not doing Gold Fury. Little known to AI, the Gold Fury is already gone.
Well, that sucks for them because 4,300 gold lead for Trifecta in the 16-minute mark. Pretty comfortable lead thus far. Nothing too crazy that they could just start grouping up in a 5v5 situation. Yeah. They still have to play very calculating, have to ward in the right places at the right time, and the next objective here is going to start to move over to this Fire Giant buff while the Gold Fury is going to wait for 5 minutes to respawn.
Quick pause, but we're ready to go back in game already between Team AI and Trifecta. As you mentioned, Trifecta in the lead, about 4,000 gold. Ionic gonna get served up for the best. Quite a bit of damage onto him. Now Chapo's gonna blink forward. That last breath is gonna do it. Fire Shard's not even needed. Chapo puts number 4 on the board for AI, and now they've got an opportunity to go for this Portal Demon, shifting their focus to that right-hand side.
Harrowin, he messed up. He could have went to Geb and give the Geb the shield.
The
double Geb play.
I don't know if it would have been enough, though. I mean, there was a lot of guaranteed damage there between that last breath ticking away and the Fire Shards. Kiki stunned out. The CC chain is good, but a big Bracer of Undoing gets him a lot of that HP back. Still hanging around, not wanting to give up this Portal Demon for free, as Xenotronics is getting 2v1 in the mid lane. Whirlwind trying to look like Divios, but still can't quite find the kill. Meanwhile, AI does secure their first Portal Demon.
But either way, by poking out Xenotronics in the mid lane, this allows Snoopy free guaranteed farm on the left. 2-level advantage. He pushes the wave under the tower, and look what he prioritizes over this 500 gold for his team. He's going to strip away a red buff and a purple buff at the 17-minute mark. And red buff for a level 13 Nuon that has that 3rd rank inside her Fire Shards is not a bad idea to strip it away from her.
And that farm is usually guaranteed to Team AI. Just kind of like that Tier 1 tower on the left is basically guaranteed to an Apollo at some point. Tier 2, you can make the argument it could be more difficult to get, but at some point Apollo just going to stick around and get the Tier 1, but Sinosure is trying to find Xenotronics as he stuck around a little bit too long. No relics for Team AI's Hunter, but Sinosure doesn't commit the ultimate there. Now Aurora uses that Terra's Blessing, and Bess is rotated as well.
Oh, Ionic is right around the corner. Apollo ultimate being used. Gonna wait out those Clay Golems, but it looks like they're not really interested in engaging so heavily under that Tier 2 on the left. They really want to make sure that there's no answer and response out of AI, even protecting the 500 gold. They could have gotten that left side Tier 2 tower if they really wanted to force the issue, but instead protecting their own Tier 1 tower.
Sinosure didn't have the ultimate. That's why we didn't see it come out underneath that Tier 1 tower. On the left-hand side is the best. Uses Fire Shards just to tell everyone to back off a little bit. We don't need to be chasing that any longer. A little bit of CDR in his build. Sands of Time providing 10% to the Nuwa, but we're not seeing something like a Chronos Pendant like we are on the side of Whirlwind, an item that's recently received a buff, now 80 power instead of the 60 that it has been for the rest of Season 4. And the amount of CDR you get from this item is much more than that 20% that it lists on the actual stat line. Having your cooldowns tick down by a second if they're on cooldown every 10 seconds is massive.
So you could technically get 50% CDR ideally if you think about it, at least for your ultimates, making sure that there are very frequently Sinosure going into the beats, but using the ultimate during the last poison. Great display of mechanics here from Chapo.
Both players really on the next level in terms of thought process. Sinosure with the very quick beads and the ultimate, expecting Chapo to go for the Deathbane, and certainly would have caught him if that was the case. Would have spelled a lot of trouble. Trouble for Divios, though. He does have that Phantom, going to get him out of the cage, but Whirlwind is here. Stun onto Divios and now transforms into the Circuit, but Whirlwind's combo gets interrupted. Divios still on the run, will get caught with that last breath, and that poison's going to spread to Aurora. Plenty of damage onto AI support. He's going to fall as well. Snoopy puts himself on the board, number 5 for Trifecta, and now they've got a 2-man advantage on this right-hand side.
Divios was just in no man's land, completely caught by himself, right between the blue and the speed buff from Trifecta. Despite being a level 17 Hercules, if you look at his build, he's not that tanky yet, working on some more health at this point. He only had that mystical mail. Nice blink from Ionic, forcing out the beats from Xeno, and this is going to allow this Tier 1 tower siege to continue.
Not only do they get the purification beads, but as you mentioned, the Tier 1 tower as well. 500 gold across the team, that's 100 per player. Trifecta, they're not going to let off the gas quite yet. Now looking for the enemy red buff once more. Purple buff should be up as well. Really a heavy focus on this these left-hand side buffs once the mid game happened. In the early game, it was Cynosure and the rest of Trifecta looking at Chapo's speed buff. Now that we've gotten past that early game, it's been on these left-hand side red buff and purple buffs.
Junglers control the early pacing of the game. Hunters and mages can dictate the later stages. So it's a great idea for the shift of attention coming out of Trifecta, which is why, despite only having 5 kills for them, they have been managing to build a slow lead already, about 5,500 gold in the lead with only 1 gold for Yuri.
And Trifecta still has that lead, as you mentioned. But if you look at the rosters here, Toli, I mean, the drafts that both teams have gone for, AI's is going to continue to get stronger as this game goes on. You look specifically at the Nuwa, of course, in that scenario. And remember, Whirlwind can utilize those late-game Fire Shards damage for himself. Another great option for the Morgan in terms of that Changeling ultimate. But Team AI's entire draft just seems to translate a little bit better into the late game in my mind.
It seems that way at least, but the question is, can they get to that point? Obviously, Chapo 2 levels behind, Xenotronics 3 levels behind. This is the point where Trifecta is probably going to start grouping up to allow their experience lead to really show in effect here as this Gold Fury is respawning.
I agree with you. I think this is the perfect time for Trifecta to group up and force a fight onto Team AI. Looking specifically at Snoopy being level 20, whereas, as you mentioned, Xenotronics only level 17. Snoopy's not going to be getting any stronger in terms of XP. He's hit the cap, so may as well try and force the fight right now, and that's exactly what Trifecta's looking for. The best ultimate spots out everyone on Trifecta, so now they're going to back off the Gold Fury for the time being. Blink in, Cataclysm onto Xenotronics, but no real follow-up onto the Hunter. Aurora's there.
He just got deleted completely. In the back is Chapo trying to find Arwen. He's going to transform into Hercules to get all of that damage mitigation. Xenotronics is getting chased down by Kiki, finding the slow and the in-hand. Apollo ultimate not even necessary, except to catch out the best.
Snoopy was there just in case. Aegis for the moment now turns his attention to Divios. The body blocks are pretty good. Serenade locks him in place for the moment as well, as Chapo is keeping 3 members busy on the backside all by himself. That slippery Cirquette going to be able to get away here, I think. No way Whirlwind for Cat to catch him.
I mean, it looked like 3, but it's actually a decoy of the Morgan, so it was actually 2. But regardless, Whirlwind keeping himself distracted by Chapo for so long. That's the job of a jungler, or obviously a solo laner, just to penetrate the backline and make sure that the hyper carries are focused on you instead. But you can't really stop an Apollo from getting into his chariot to dive the enemy backline.
Well, Gold Fury went Trifecta's way. Portal Demon, more of the same. It's going to push their gold lead to right around 8,000 gold. It's been a pretty slow burn. I mean, look at the gold graphs there. Just been a steady decline in Trifecta's favor.
Just kind of Surgic style out of Trifecta. It's making a small incision here, small incision there, and now just death by 1,000 cuts from Team AI. They can't really respond in kind because there's no breathing room that Trifecta are allowing. All these warding battles, all this positioning battle, it's not from Trifecta trying to force a team fight at all. They're just trying to group up, place a ward here. All right, move forward 5 more inches, place your next ward. Like, you know, clearing out the minefields, as you will.
Whirlwind has to use a Purification Beads after a nice pull-push combination from Divios. But still, it's Trifecta on the aggressive on this right-hand side. Tier 1 tower already went down in their favor for their 500 gold. Divios in that front side does have the Phantom ready to go in case of Kiki, or maybe even a cage from Whirlwind as well. Whirlwind's looked really good on this Morgan so far, really utilizing that heavy CDR, but Aurora and the rest of Team AI want to engage. The best is the only one locked in the cage. Divios gives him the Phantom. That's going to allow him to escape for the moment. Cynosure is getting handled on the bottom side until he turns it around onto Chapo. Windfire Wheels getting the jungler out of danger and puts Chapo down. Cynosure with that kill. Aurora, he's caught in the middle. Nowhere for him to go here. Sash is going to allow Snoopy to pick up his third. 9 in total for Trifecta. And again, 5v3.
Kiki's not done. Diving the tier 2 tower, up in the chariot, and then crashing down. Can't find the Serenade or the ring bounces, but Cynosure finds the stun onto Xeno. Snoopy finding his second kill of the engagement onto Best. Cynosure responding in kind. Boulder doing a lot of damage, but Cynosure barely surviving from that Phoenix shot.
So close. The Flaming Spear heals enough to keep Cynosure alive, and that's a clean deicide for Trifecta. We've got some time here, Toli, but Chapo and Aurora are going to be up right around now. I don't think Trifecta can necessarily go for the end in this scenario.
Not entirely, but they have plenty of time to go for this late game objective in the form of the Fire Giant, just making sure that they close the game out very cleanly, even still leaving Kiki behind to zone just in case, because even though obviously Aurora can't really steal efficiently with just clapping the walls, he's going to make it more difficult than it needs to be. Stunning out multiple members onto Trifecta is not something they want to deal with as they do this objective.
Yeah, it's going to go down no problem whatsoever. Trifecta looking really strong here in game number 1 up against Team AI, who had a couple things going for them, specifically on that left-hand side for a little bit, but even after that kill on a Snoopy, then Chapo comes back, Team AI drops that kill on a Snoopy. That could have been the real difference maker for me, is that if Xeno's able to get that kill, keep Snoopy down, maybe AI has a chance into this game in the mid stages, but really that early pressure that Snoopy got invading buffs on the left-hand side all the time was too much.
It just made sense that everything fell into place for Snoopy, obviously, with Kiki making that level 1 play to strip away those purple ogres. Chapo diving the backline, Ionic using that Cataclysm, but he's in a little bit of trouble.
Ionic's in a lot of trouble. The boulder's coming through, and Xeno's gonna find the kill, but a huge cage coming out of Kiki. Locks in 4, no Phantom quite yet for Divios. Good damage onto Aurora, but he's still alive for the moment. Kiki finds the double bird bomb, and Sino's gonna take Best up into the sky. That's gonna drop him down on the return. Sinosure is gonna be able to find it. Divios falls to Snoopy, and the rest of AI is fighting for their lives, but it's not gonna be enough. Xeno's gonna fall to the bird bomb. Snoopy finds one more, and it's only Aurora left for the time being.
Not gonna be able to get away. It's gonna be a deicide, and this time it should be plenty to end with this right side Phoenix exposed. All 5 members dead from AI for another at least 25 seconds until the Best comes up. And that was just a last-ditch effort coming out of AI. Despite knowing that Trifecta had the Fire Giant on all 5 members, they really wanted to get back in the game somehow, and they were praying that somebody would be out of position.
So Trifecta finds game number 1 up against Team AI, and as I mentioned, this is a team that looked good during the spring split, has shown flashes of being a top-tier team in North America, but for me, I was always left asking, I need to see a little bit more from Snoopy. That game, we saw a lot from Snoopy, and really during this entire summer split towards the second half of it, Snoopy has started to look really good, and it's no coincidence that Trifecta is looking really good because of it.
I mean, it makes sense because AI banned away the soul, really respecting him on that magical hunter. But hey, guess what? He's going to bring it back old school, back to the Apollo days, making some flashy highlight plays. Once he did get that little bit of a lead that he needed to, he started bullying out the Kernanos on Xenotronics, and he even forced out the beads there without having to use his own beads. Surviving 2 ganks was the crucial moment to allow Snoopy to get that lead.
I mean, like I mentioned, I think AI had a decent game plan. They were losing the right-hand side. Let's pressure the left. And again, if that kills goes through onto Snoopy, you never know what's going to happen, but it doesn't. And so AI do not find game number 1. Should be ready.